A 2007 Formula One season that had the lot. Good and bad, thrilling and controversial. And we're going to review the full story of a season that without doubt was the most riveting for years. And Formula One never stops. Here at Jerez in December, testing is already well underway for a 2008 season that the drivers will contest without traction control. So the future is exciting and the future is challenging. But Martin Brundle, the dust has barely settled on a quite astonishing 2007. How do you rate the past year?
I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. We had four great drivers challenging for the World Championship most of the year. Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, Kimi Raikkonen and Felipe Massa. They all had brilliant victories too. Massa dropped out of the title fight with 2 races to go. But right up until the final lap of the final Grand Prix, 3 of them could still take the championship. We also had the emergence of Nico Rosberg, Robert Kubica despite his amazing accident in Montreal, and the likes of Heikki Kovalainen. Paddock politics threatened to derail the whole season, but the story of the year, although he didn't quite get the job done at the final hurdle, of course, was the emergence of the amazing Lewis Hamilton in his first season.
But it was Kimi Raikkonen who took the title by a single point in that final round decider. And the manner in which he took the title was remarkable enough. But the season, of course, will forever be remembered for Lewis Hamilton's entry onto the Formula One scene. The best rookie season the sport has ever seen.
I knew that I'd done everything I could to be ready and to get on the grid and to get into that first corner first. But we had obviously I didn't get the best start, but I remember Ron was just telling me, you're going to finish in the top 10, don't worry about it, you're going to have a good race. I think he was more nervous than me.
How much did that first corner sort of characterise everything that would come in the races that followed?
The amount of excitement I felt when I knew that I had outbraked near enough everyone. So obviously they were a bit cautious and I wasn't. And then I just slotted in just in front of Fernando. Obviously that was a huge boost of confidence for me, because at the end of the day he was the guy that I was being compared to and hoping to beat, and staying ahead of him for the whole race was pretty cool.
But this was your first corner in Formula One. How much had you anticipated what the experience would be like, and was there at all any kind of self-doubt that you had what it took?
If I'm honest, I never doubt myself, and I think because racing has always been my strong point, so I was fairly confident that I was going to be able to do a good job. But obviously I never thought that I would be overtaking 3 or 4 people into the first corner. So really it is just last minute sort of thing. But when those things are thrown at me, I'm able to juggle it and do something with it, and I guess that's what makes me different to the others maybe.
Malaysia, Fernando won, and you in similarly aggressive mood, taking second place, a sort of supporting role. So does that mean that was just about the high point of the relationship between you and Fernando in Malaysia?
You're probably right, that probably was Australia and there. And I think obviously he was extremely excited because he got his first win with the team. The team were very excited because we got a 1-2. And for me, I'd started 4th. Ferraris usually get a better start than us and they're on the clean side as they did for many of the races. And I don't know how, but I'd managed to sort of outbrake them both and get past both of them into the first and second corner. So that was obviously a dream experience for me.
Monaco, you weren't happy, and you were outspoken at the time. Do you look back on that with any regret, or was that sort of a watershed as well?
No, I don't particularly live with regret. But at the end of the day, I want to win. I'm not born to come second. I can take losing, but when we're given absolute equal opportunities to do that, i.e. I'm allowed to race for the win, then I'm happy to finish second. But I didn't feel that was the case, and so I had to try it and express myself. I couldn't just sit back and allow that to happen for the whole year. And obviously, I didn't realise how much the media would use that against the team. But at the end of the day, it worked to my benefit, because at the end of the day, things did change, and then I was given a different sort of opportunity, and we won the next 2 races. So.
But that victory in Canada was followed immediately by your second success in Indianapolis. What's your best memory of that, of those back-to-back races?
Getting my first pole position was really, I can still feel the excitement that was inside of me. Coming across the line, I know it's the last minute, Fernando's got pole at the moment, can I get it? And you come across the line and the team tell you on the radio, and you really do want to do cartwheels. You know, you want to jump out the seat, do some donuts, or do whatever you can to, you know, you're stuck in this car, all strapped in, you can't move. But I really did end that lap with basically no voice left.
Lewis Hamilton wins! Surely the first of many for Lewis Hamilton.
Getting race win was the icing on the cake. Then I didn't go out partying that night. I'm sure some of the other drivers did, or with their girlfriends or whatever they're doing. And I had a reasonably early night, enjoyed my evening with my team, and then the next day I was up thinking about the next race. I had a great race, you know, I had a good battle with Fernando, which was something I'd always wanted to be doing, you know, having a one-to-one with him, and yeah, came out in front.
And how would you describe the emotions as well when you took pole position at Silverstone?
Silverstone was unreal, and I turned up there, and the amount of people that were wearing Vodafone McLaren Mercedes hats and t-shirts and Hamilton flags. I didn't even know they were Hamilton flags, so you know, the whole grandstand, the whole way around the circuit, I could see everyone was really, it must have been a good 60% of them there for me, which was just phenomenal. And really didn't have the car for pole, but we managed to pull it out. And then went into the race, and we knew that it was going to be tough. And I needed to have a certain gap at the start of the race to really pull off a win. And so it was inevitable that the Ferrari was going to keep up with us and overtake us, but we really had to try and do the best job we could. Fernando had a slightly better setup than me. I really struggled through the race, but you know, that's one of the learning experiences, and I still had a great amount of support from the fans. And I know that next year we're gonna go back there, and hopefully it'll be great to have a win there.
Back came Ferrari at that point in the season, and the problems were starting to mount for you, in particular at Nürburgring, your first finish off the podium, and your first big shunt in Formula 1 as well.
It didn't upset me, you know. I had the crash. I remember getting out the car. I struggled to stand up because my legs were hurting, my chest was killing me, and I remember approaching that wall thinking, oh God, this is going to hurt. I really did say that, you know, you have a split second to do that. And I was trying to ask the medical guy, you know, what's the rules with the spare car? Am I allowed to go jump in my spare car and get out and still finish my qualifying lap? But obviously that was never going to happen. There was only 3 minutes left or something, and you're not allowed to do that. But I was very fortunate to get into the race the next day. Got a great start. I was up to 4th by the third corner, and I had a puncture. So it was just one of those weekends where it just wasn't meant to be. And I'd already prepared myself at the beginning of the season that it was inevitable, something like that was going to happen. So I was fully prepared and tried to bounce back.
Other things were starting to happen around the team at this point as well. When did you first get to hear that the mounting problems with what was rather clumsily called the Spygate controversy? When did you first learn how serious this might be?
I think the first time we really noticed how serious it was, I think, must have been Monza. When obviously we went there, we wanted to beat the Ferraris on their home turf, but then the media were going crazy about this, you know, the Italians, and then I really realised, wow, this is really, really serious. I went to Paris to support the team. I didn't have to say anything, they didn't have any questions for me, but I just wanted to be there just to show my support because, you know, I've been with this team for 10 years. It's quite a long time considering I'm only 22.
Ahead of that, though, had come Hungary, which was a pretty awful weekend. How do you look back on that?
It was a tough weekend, and for me it was another stage in the season where you're always trying to get ahead of Fernando, not to unsettle him, but to push it to another level. And that weekend I'd got my car set up right, and I was undoubtedly, you know, a good 3 to 4 tenths quicker than him, even on more fuel. So I was very comfortable also to get the qualifying lap, and you know, when it didn't happen, it was a bit of a misunderstanding. I believed it was perhaps Ron just, you know, teaching me a lesson, and it wasn't. It was something completely different. And I think just altogether it was a big misunderstanding, which, you know, perhaps I lit the match and Fernando sort of started the forest fire. But you have to go through these sort of experiences to learn, and I know I will never ever put myself in that position with the team again, and obviously they know how to manage it slightly better for the future. But I definitely feel with all the stuff we've gone through this year, there's nothing we can't do and there's nothing that can really stop us.
Lewis had taken himself to the very brink of the World Championship, and then, just as British Motorsport was getting ready to celebrate, it was all snatched away. Lewis explains how in part 2.
The mistake was believing that it could have been done that weekend. At the end of the day, with 12 points in the lead, all I've got to do is get a couple of points and it's over.
The 3-race climax to the season then, and it was nip and tuck for the championship. You were still ahead of things. And then came Japan, which was possibly your best performance of the season.
It was. Basically, you know, during the season, you know, you're always changing your setup. You're always trying to do one step better. And we had gone to Spa, to Turkey. The car was terrible. It was a disaster to drive. I came back into the factory on the Monday morning after Spa. My engineer was like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And I said, we've got work to do. And we came in, we analysed where we'd been, where we need to be going with the car setup, where the mistakes have been made, and we nailed it. And we went off to Fuji, and with the great feeling of confidence, and the car was great. So I had no doubt that we could win. Then it rained, and it was extreme conditions, but the track was quite grippy considering it was wet. And it was all about just not making any mistakes. And then Fernando obviously made a mistake, which made the victory even better for me, even more advantageous. But it was a fantastic weekend.
You got so many things right in Japan, which was what I suppose made the experience a week later in China so agonizing.
Yeah, yes, China was a tough weekend, and I guess for me the mistake was believing that it could have been done that weekend. It just wasn't as simple as that. You know, we were quickest, got a great qualifying lap, another pole position. I led the race, and due to my tyres getting pretty bad, I wasn't able to keep Kimi behind me, but at the end of the day it wasn't really too important. But for me, I'm a racing driver, I don't want to lose. No matter what happens, I want to win. And you know, we stayed out for as long as possible. I was on the radio saying, I've got to come in, these tyres are completely finished, I'm going to come off if I don't come in soon. And coming from the dry track to the wet pit lane, I hadn't taken that into account, that the pit lane would still be wet. And you know, I came in, not attacking too much, and it was like an ice rink. Nothing I could do, and I still didn't give up, but I remember my heart just dropping, sinking to the lowest point, and almost stopping when I was in that car in the gravel. And I was just hoping that the guys would be able to push me out, but there was no way. You know, they're pushing my wheels, and it wasn't going to happen. And even though I could have probably sat there for another couple of minutes, I knew I'd be a lap 2 down, and so I had to sort of give in. That's a mistake. Let's move on. So I kept my chin up, as always, because that's the lesson my dad's always learnt, always taught me. And you know, I sucked it in and came back to the next race.
Yes, there were mistakes made there on the pit wall for sure, but you take a fair bit of responsibility from the cockpit too.
Absolutely, but it's a team thing. So
Brazil, the attitude, you still had the championship lead, but you were still out there as a racer as well, weren't you?
I was, yes. Again, you know, that's me. You know, I take all things into account, but at the end of the day, I want to win. But I'm not going to take silly risks. And again, that weekend, good car, just missed pole position, and I think we were slightly heavier than the Ferraris, or as heavy as one of the Ferraris. And yeah, so I felt we were in a good position to either win the race or at least win the championship. Didn't get a great start, lost some ground. I nearly crashed into my teammate in turn 4. I had to avoid him and went a bit wide and lost a couple of places, but still I was only 7th. It was easy ground to make up. I had the car underneath me, so I was still quite relaxed. And I remember Ron coming on the radio saying, just relax, just relax. And I'm thinking, don't worry, I'm relaxed. And you know, I kept pushing and pushing, but then all of a sudden the car just stopped, shifting down. I think I was in 5th gear, and the thing just went into neutral. And all I could see is people flying past me, just trying to avoid being hit, so just in case something does, you know, reinitiate and get going again. And it did. You know, I think I got hydraulics back, and I was able to use it and get back going. There was never a point in that race that I thought, my championship's over, I can't win. And for me, that's the most important thing, because you know, anything can happen, but at the end of the day, I was last by a good 30 seconds. Most people would give up, but I didn't, and I pushed right up until the checkered flag and a few hundred meters after that.
But that mechanical problem, you say no known reason, and when you talk to people who have been drawn into the sport by your performances this season, that's what rather baffles them, and they see so many sort of conspiracy theories coming up during the second half of the season, and then something as random as that happens at such a key moment of the championship season. What would you say to that?
I haven't really seen what's been said. I know there's for sure lots of different conspiracy theories, and for me, I have to believe that we just made a mistake, and it was a mistake from us. We overheated the engine. We used the wrong cooling system, and the only problem is that it didn't happen to Fernando or anyone else in the race. So but this is racing, and Kimi did a fantastic job. So hat goes off to him. But I really look forward to challenging next year, and I think again another experience the team have learnt from. We need to be absolutely on point all the way up into that last race, and something as small as the engine overheating can really ruin a lot of things.
And if you find yourself in the same championship position with 3 races to go next year, as I certainly hope you will you be thinking a little bit more tactically, a little less as a racer?
I'm going to have to probably take a slightly different approach, but still attacking, because that's me. But I'm not going to take as many risks perhaps as I did this year.
It's been an astonishing first season, hasn't it?
It has, and my world has just turned upside down. But I'm still really enjoying it, and I'm just itching to get back out in the car.
It's going to be a fabulous season, but
yes, it will.
Congratulations on everything you've achieved.
Thank you very much.
He's absorbed the disappointment well, but Martin, of course, from the position he was in with 2 races left, he should have won the World Championship. What exactly went wrong?
The more I think about it, the more I can't believe that Lewis Hamilton didn't take the title. 20 points on the table with 2 races to go. He was 17 ahead, and it was his for the taking. Of course, there was that fateful day in China where they chose not to come in and change their tyres. We appeared to all be able to see that the tyres were down to the canvas. He went into the gravel trap in the pit lane. I can't think of any other circuit in the world that has a gravel trap in the pit lane, and there's no reason for that one to be there either. It seems that playing the percentage game is not in Lewis's armoury at the moment.
All the way through the season, he'd shown his natural instincts as a racer, and in those sort of circumstances, it's those instincts that he's got to control, isn't it?
It is. A championship is won over an entire season, not on any given day. And he always wanted to go for the victory. There were some pivotal points, of course. In the 4th race of the year, he beat Alonso fair and square. He won his 6th Grand Prix. He started from pole 6 times, 4 victories in the end. And crucially also, in Monaco, he established himself within the team as a serious contender rather than just a grateful protege.
I suppose one of the exciting things about Lewis is that we still talk of him in terms of room for improvement, and car setup is one of those areas, isn't it?
It is. He's only 22. Raikkonen a full 6 years older with much more experience. So Lewis says, I'm going to take strength from this defeat. Whatever they say, he's going to take pain for the rest of his life for losing that championship that was well within his grasp. But I do think he'll come back stronger, faster, more experienced, and able to set his car up better too.
Well, we've seen how the title slipped out of Lewis's grasp on this occasion, but how exactly was it won from so far back? How did Kimi Raikkonen become world champion? Louise Goodman reports.
Nation of Iceman, Kimi Raikkonen and Ferrari saw the Finn as pre-season title favourite. First time out in Australia, the pair lived up to expectations by producing a fine win. But that early promise soon turned to misery. Raikkonen struggled to find the sweet spot of his Bridgestone-shod Ferrari package. While Kimi faltered, teammate Felipe Massa in his 2nd year with the team was putting his experience to good use with early season victories. Kimi's car struggles and failure to finish in Spain saw Massa overtake him in the driver's standings, and this error in Monaco qualifying only made things worse, while McLaren drivers Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso were pulling away at the top of the tables. By the time the North American races arrived, the press were looking for answers.
There's nothing wrong with the car. It's just to find the best way of getting the best out of it. I think so. The tires are biggest change for me, but we haven't really been able to get everything as we want.
Victory in Canada and the USA for Lewis Hamilton rubbed salt into the wounds. But just as the doubts were setting in, the return to Europe heralded the turnaround in results Kimi needed. Back-to-back victories in France and Britain demonstrated the threat of an on-form Raikkonen, now more at one with his Ferrari package. But there was still work to do.
As long as we get the good weekends, no problems, and we found a good way of working and getting the car right, I think so we can at least challenge for wins.
And that's exactly what he did. As Alonso and Hamilton fought with each other for victories, Kimi spent the latter part of the European season racking up a string of valuable podium finishes, and a dominant victory at Spa kept him in with a mathematical chance of the title.
We see we keep pushing, and we're still in the championship, so hopefully we can do it. It's going to be very difficult.
Ferrari wasn't giving up either, and with Massa way behind in the points, put its full weight behind the Finns' title campaign. Whilst Alonso threw away valuable points with a rare driver error in Japan, Raikkonen kept his hopes alive with a great podium. But Hamilton's victory meant he'd surely done enough to secure the title in the 2 remaining rounds. Then came China. Starting from pole position, Hamilton looked set to clinch the crown that afternoon, but there were more twists to come in the story. He ended up in the gravel, whilst Kimi ended up on the top step of the podium. Hamilton, Alonso and Raikkonen were all now in contention for the title at the three-way championship showdown in Brazil, but Kimi was aware that the odds were stacked against him.
It's quite simple in a way, so we don't have anything to lose and only to gain something.
What he had to gain was his first ever championship. Raikkonen kept his head whilst others around were losing theirs to take the victory and win that elusive crown. He may have clinched it by just a single point, but Kimi scored more from France onwards than any other driver, and with 6 wins had the most visits to the top step of the podium. Amongst the frenzied celebrations, the coolest guy around was the main man himself.
Kimi Raikkonen, 2007 world champion. How does that feel?
Oh, it feels good for sure. I think so. We wanted to win a long time already, or I wanted, and now we finally done it. So definitely it feels good, and it's an achievement what I always wanted to have. So.
Now, leaving North America back in June, you were 26 points behind Lewis Hamilton. Did you ever imagine you could win the World Championship from there?
I seriously never gave up, and for sure they didn't look good on that point, but we knew that once we get everything sorted with the car, and I got a bit better setup for it, so we knew that we should have a chance, and then we started to winning, and things started to go in our way.
What was your highlight of the 2007 season from your perspective?
The Spa win is always good. The first win with the first race with the Ferrari was a very special moment also.
Every Formula One fan I've met and everybody in the paddock I know, even if they wanted Hamilton to win, are still thrilled. They think you fully deserve the championship. Is that important to you to have that kind of support?
Yeah, of course it helps, but I think so whoever has the most points in the end, and for sure we won more races than the others. So for me, I'm happy to win it, and it's nice to hear that the people also think that it was the right decision. I enjoy Formula One for sure this year more than maybe a few previous years on many different reasons, but overall it has been working with Ferrari, and then outside of Formula One has been better than before.
The contest between Raikkonen and Hamilton promises to be exhilarating to watch next year. The downside of 2007 was the politics, the controversy and the scandal. We'll have all of that, plus the other British performances, right after the break. It's the supposed close season in Formula One, but this end-of-year test session at Jerez gives you an idea of how much hard work is going on in front of what promises to be a fabulous 2008 contest. On the track in 2007, the competitive edge was never stronger, but off the track, the politics and the recriminations were never more poisonous. And as Ted Kravitz reports, it was the year of Spygate and the year when McLaren seemed to be permanently under siege.
The fact this year's championship was only confirmed in a lawyer's office last month tells you all you need to know about the season's bitter off-track politics. It started with the so-called spy scandal, although rather than spying, this year's events were more about leaks, loose tongues, and even theft.
Having a good look at other people's cars has been going on for years. Actually receiving information from an employee of another company, that really is beyond what's regarded acceptable.
It began at the first race when McLaren were tipped off about Ferrari's flexible floor section. McLaren challenged the Ferrari and won, forcing their rivals into a redesign. But the tip-off had come from a senior Ferrari figure, a member of Schumacher's dream team, Nigel Stepney. He was leaking information to his friend, McLaren's chief designer Mike Coughlin. Ferrari seemed powerless to stop the secrets leaving the factory. Stepney was even accused of sabotaging Kimi Raikkonen's car.
What I heard has happened. I think so. He's much happier that he's not involved anymore.
The FIA investigated how McLaren had used the data they'd been given. At first, they couldn't find any evidence that proved McLaren had used it to their benefit. But the FIA later found out about emails between Pedro de la Rosa and Fernando Alonso discussing how to use the Ferrari secrets. McLaren were fined £50 million, were thrown out of the Constructors' Championship, and have since apologised to the FIA.
I don't think anyone's questioning the legality of our cars. Otherwise, I don't think we'd be racing.
The other teams fully understand that nobody should do this, and at the same time, the other teams, I think, are actually relieved to know that we will stamp it out. Once you get this culture of cheating in a sport, it's a complete disaster, and you've got to cut it out as soon as you find it.
But other teams were involved in this culture of cheating. Former McLaren engineer Phil Makareth took a load of confidential documents to a new job at Renault. Designers at Renault therefore learnt lots of interesting things about McLaren's fuel system, gearbox and dampers. The FIA found Renault had broken the rules, but because they couldn't prove Renault had used McLaren secrets to make their own car go faster, they let the French team off without a penalty. So now the team's future is safe. Fernando Alonso can make the move back to Renault in a straight swap with Heikki Kovalainen, who takes Alonso's vacated seat at McLaren. Fernando's still very popular at Renault, the team where he won his 2 championships, where he was virtually idolised, and where he's likely to be assured unconditional #1 status. It was the fact he never got that at McLaren that caused the collapse of their relationship. Alonso believed he'd been brought into the team to win the driver's title, so he should be supported accordingly. But when the team refused to slow Lewis Hamilton down so that Alonso would score maximum points, Fernando became annoyed and frustrated. In retrospect, Alonso was absolutely right. If McLaren had used team orders to back either driver as #1, they'd now have a drivers' championship. But at the same time, Fernando didn't help his cause with the odd display of gamesmanship. So despite a nasty end to Fernando's relationship with McLaren, he has no hard feelings towards Hamilton.
For sure in Spain, with all the things that has been in the press and everything, the people in Spain is not very huge fan of Luis now, and the same for me in England probably. So I think this is normal.
And just when we thought all the politics were done for the season, came the cool fuel row in Brazil. Had BMW and Williams been thrown out of the race for chilling their petrol too much, Lewis Hamilton would have been crowned world champion instead of Raikkonen, but the stewards decided not to take any action. McLaren took that decision to appeal. Ferrari, faced with the possibility of losing their world championship and still smarting from the spy scandal, labelled McLaren shameless hypocrites. The appeal was rejected on a technicality, Raikkonen confirmed world champion, and the curtain fell on one of the most spiteful and vindictive periods in the sport's history.
It's been such a destabilising year in terms of all the off-track politics. How damaging has it been for the sport, in particular the whole spying scandal?
I think it's been quite damaging. We've sent a bad signal out. It's a very small world we operate in, and you employ people because of their experience and their knowledge. But where does it all finish in this digital age? You can take vast quantities of information between the teams. The guillotine has come down on that, on McLaren, with a £50 million fine. To many, the crime didn't seem to fit the penalty, but it has got to be sorted out. Formula One, to an extent, is about the skullduggery, the intrigue, the bright characters that are involved. But this one sent a signal out to the fans of, hey, a £50 million fine and a team can still carry on racing.
How much of a line has been drawn under it now, or how much bad feeling is likely to spill over into 2008?
I'm sure under the surface there's a lot more of this information transfer been going on, but they have to draw a line under it and set new ground rules. A precedent has now been established.
Let's get back to the racing, and certainly in terms of the British sport, all the headlines were being generated by Lewis Hamilton, but what about other British contenders in 2007?
This was a season that didn't really ignite for David Coulthard. He suffered just as much as teammate Webber from Red Bull's poor reliability, and more often than not struggled to match the Australian in qualifying. Coulthard raced as well as ever though, and ended up finishing 10th in the Drivers' Championship, scoring 14 points, with the best placing of 4th in the rain at Fuji.
The real positives we can take from the year are that we're in front of two major manufacturers in Honda and Toyota, and given that Red Bull obviously don't manufacture road cars, we can take a great deal of pride from that. But the ultimate goal, of course, is on podiums and victories.
This was Anthony Davidson's first season as a full-time F1 race driver, and after 6 years as a test driver, he took a little time to sharpen up. But once he got going, Anthony showed he had the speed. He was headed for a handful of points in Canada before an encounter with a groundhog broke his front wing. While Takuma Sato scored all of Super Aguri's points, Davidson was generally quicker in qualifying. Favourite of the season was in Istanbul.
Well, I'd like to think of Turkey qualifying has been probably my strongest showing of natural speed of what I had from the year. I think people have seen that a lot of times in general testing and on the Fridays of last year and 2004. But I've really been able to put that into showing this year. And that's been really good to prove to people that might have been doubters before of my speed.
When Jenson Button's car broke down at the last race of the year, it must have come more as a relief than a disappointment. This year's Honda was a dog of a car, but Jenson Button actually gained plaudits for racing as well as ever, treating the battle for 12th, 13th and 14th places just as seriously as the battle for podiums. And like Davidson, Istanbul was a highlight of his season.
Turkey was a great race for me, and I loved the circuit as well. But we started right at the back, me and Rubens, because we had a problem with the engine. So coming through the field, I finished 13th. I mean, there's nothing to get too excited about, but I overtook about 10, 11 cars throughout the race. And it was so much fun, you know, it was a really, really good fun race, and I hadn't experienced that for many races, because we've had such a difficult car to drive. But in that race, the car felt a little bit better, and we had a fun race. Shanghai was good in wet, dry conditions. Found myself in 5th position at the end of the race. So again, a great race, and I think you need them when the season's been so tough, to have 2 or 3 races that are good and you really enjoy them and you feel you got the best out of the car and the team. It brings you up a little bit more. I think if I was with a team that would find no direction and didn't have the resources, I would have had a big problem with the situation this year. But because I know that we can find a way out of this, you've got to work at it, you've got to keep pushing. Plus, there are 600 people at the factory, not quite, but close to. And, you know, if my head drops, what is it going to do for their confidence? So, you know, I've got to stay strong, and, you know, the driver needs to give 100% at all times.
With the 07 Honda happily consigned to a future as a show car, Jenson Button can look forward to next season, now that Ross Brawn has joined Honda as team principal.
The morale in the team is so high now. When he walked in to the factory the first day, the cheers were unbelievable. I never had anything like it. You know, even when we won a race, it wasn't like that. So he's gonna have a big impact on the team. And already, you know, I think he's very happy within his position. It's going to take a little bit of time for things to change, and one man isn't going to change a whole team overnight. But it just adds something to the team that we've been missing for a long time.
For Anthony Davidson, for Coulthard, for Button, a bit more of a battling season.
Davidson did a good job. He outperformed Sato towards the end of the season, made a few mistakes. His qualifying lap at the Turkish Grand Prix was one of the best qualifying laps of the year. Let's hope he keeps the drive for 2008.
And David and Jenson?
David Coulthard, I think he had a strong season. Top Red Bull point scorer again of their 4 cars, so keeps his drive for another year. Struggled a bit in qualifying, had a lot of technical issues with the car, as did Mark Webber. But in race trim, David very much got the job done, and I think the Newey car wasn't quite ready for winning and regular podiums. Again, another driver looking forward to 2008, I'm sure. Jenson, for me, his stock was higher at the end of the year, despite a disastrous season. He had a car that was allergic to corners, kept his chin up, and just kept pushing, and I respect him for that.
In the final part, we'll look at other performers this season, including the outgoing world champion Fernando Alonso, and there's also our last ITV F1 competition of 2007. The 2007 Formula One season, Raikkonen's title, and the record books will tell us it was Ferrari's Constructors' Championship as a result of McLaren being excluded from the contest in the wake of Spygate. BMW second, the defending champions Renault rather off the pace. A much improved year for Williams. We'll take a look at who else enhanced their reputations in 2007 and who else struggled.
BMW Sauber consistently impressed this year as Nick Heidfeld and Robert Kubica quietly got the job done. Heidfeld's second place in Canada was the season's top result, whilst Robert Kubica made the headlines for very different reasons.
Oh, that's a big accident.
It was the biggest accident of the year, but despite that slight mishap, the team scored points at every single Grand Prix, finishing a best ever second in the revised Constructors' Championship.
If I'm disappointed, then it would be because I expected with a car as quick as we had it to score more podiums, but unfortunately the two top teams, especially McLaren, were very reliable.
Renault started the season as world champions, but it soon became clear that their new car was failing to get the best out of its Bridgestone tyres. Seasoned campaigner Giancarlo Fisichella had to dig deep, and it was a tough baptism for newcomer Heikki Kovalainen, but he shrugged off early criticism and by mid-season was outclassing his more experienced teammate. The impressive youngster went on to record the team's sole podium finish of the season in Japan. Renault will be hoping for more consistent top three finishes when it swaps Fisichella and Kovalainen for Nelson Piquet Jr. and former champion Fernando Alonso in 2008. Williams were back in the groove this season, outperforming some of their better-funded manufacturer-backed rivals, including Toyota, whose engines powered Alex Wurz to a season's best third place in Canada. Wurz announced that he was bowing out of Formula One after the Chinese Grand Prix. Replacement Kazuki Nakajima struggled with his debut pit stop in Brazil, but earned a full-time drive next season, whilst Nico Rosberg attracted admiring glances from rival teams, prompting Williams to extend his contract through to 2009. Red Bull's season got off to a flying start in Australia when David Coulthard misjudged his braking point, but all too often this year it was the car's reliability that put Coulthard and Mark Webber out of contention. The highlight was the Australian's third place at the European Grand Prix. Behind the scenes, Adrian Newey has continued to consolidate his engineering team, bringing talents like Jeff Willis to the fold as Red Bull looks to turn an average 2007 into something more remarkable for 2008. Toyota continued its wholly unmemorable Formula One story with another less than satisfactory season. Sixth place was the best result that Jarno Trulli could muster, and after an inconsistent and disappointing year, Ralf Schumacher announced his departure from Toyota and possibly from Formula One. Ferrari-powered Toro Rosso didn't have much to shout about for most of the year. After a clash of personalities, Scott Speed fell out for good with his Toro Rosso bosses and was replaced by talented BMW tester Sebastian Vettel. The Chinese race was the bright spot in the season. Fourth for Vettel and sixth for Liuzzi brought the team more points in one race than it's ever scored in an entire season. Honda's year was so dismal that it even wiped the smile off perennially cheerful team boss Nick Fry's face. There was nothing funny about the handling of the RA107. Rubens Barrichello failed to score a single point for the first time in his 15-year Formula One career.
We had a problem with the car all through the year. You know, every update we put on the car, it was even worse than the one previous.
The Honda-powered Super Aguri team gave their more illustrious cousins a serious run for their money, and Takuma Sato memorably gave Fernando Alonso a huge surprise when he pulled off one of the overtaking manoeuvres of the year on the Spaniard at the Canadian Grand Prix. It was another sterling performance from this underfunded and understaffed outfit. The tail-end Charlies started the year as Spiker, with accident-prone Christian Albers partnering Adrian Sutil, whose talents extend beyond the racetrack in the Ferrari-engined orange cars. Albers was replaced mid-season, first by Marcus Winkelhock and then by Sakin Yamamoto. Rebranded Force India Formula One after its purchase by Indian entrepreneur Vijay Mallya, the team hopes his enthusiasm and considerable finances will finally move them off the back of the grid in 2008.
And then, of course, there was Fernando Alonso at the end of 2006, Martin. He was a double world champion, set for legendary status. What have we learned about him in 2007?
Well, we've learned and confirmed that he's a bad loser, but that's a quality in this business. Maybe he went to McLaren with some assumptions, some promises. He expected to be number one. I think only Lewis and his dad expected Lewis to really challenge the double world champion. But what disappointed us all, and we were massive fans of Alonso, and we so respect what he's achieved in Formula One already, is that when Lewis did very much go faster than him and pushed him all the way through the season, his reaction was to try to slow Lewis down, not to find another gear and raise his own game. And of course, never bite the hand that feeds you. He brought all sorts of problems onto the McLaren team.
How much are you looking forward to 2008 now?
I really am, especially with the traction control gone. Just watching the cars here going into the corners, they're moving around, the drivers are making mistakes, sliding and wheel spinning on the exit. Of course, the cars are still supremely fast. We are going to see more challenging races next year, especially with rainy conditions or when the tyres wear out quite a bit too. We're going to see the drivers struggling.
Martin, thanks very much indeed. That's the 2007 story, and our last action comes in the form of the ITV F1 competition.
We're giving you the chance to win tickets to the 2008 Santander Formula One British Grand Prix on the 4th, 5th and 6th of July. You and a friend will have grandstand seats in the pit straight complex, where you'll be able to see all the action on the grid, as well as the pit lane and the team garages. You'll also win a Silverstone Ferrari 360 experience, where you'll get to drive around Silverstone Southern Circuit, which includes Beckett's, Stowe and the Hangar Straight, behind the wheel of a Ferrari 360 F1 Modena. You'll have full briefing, warm-up laps in a Lotus Exige, and then the drive of a lifetime in the powerful and exciting Ferrari 360. So to be in with a chance of winning this great prize, courtesy of Silverstone, you must answer this question correctly. Which team does Lewis Hamilton drive for? A. McLaren, B. Williams or C. Toyota? The number to dial 0901 293 2020 or text F1 plus your answer of A, B or C to 63337. Calls cost £1 per entry from BT Landline. Calls from other networks and mobiles may be higher. Text will cost £1 plus the standard network rate. You must be 21 or over to enter and have held a full driving licence for over 3 years. You can also enter for free at itv.com. Lines close 6 p.m. Monday the 14th of January, and entries made after this closing time won't be counted but may still be charged.
The British Grand Prix, the weekend of the 6th of July. The 2008 schedule has its familiar starting point of Melbourne in March and its less familiar locations of Valencia for the new street race and Singapore for the first ever Formula One night race. An exciting expanded schedule to go with a championship which promises the fiercest of competition. Make sure you're with us for the season start in Melbourne in March and the preview programme ahead of it. Raikkonen's title in 2007. Can it be Lewis in 2008?
This young fella's got some extraordinary skills and talents.
It isn't just he's a driver, because he obviously is a good driver, but he's a racer.
The greats come in and do the job straight away.
It is natural for him to expect to be running at the front, and that's the sign of a true winner.
It's been a fantastic year. We lost it by 1 point. We'll come back next year, and if we don't win it next year, we'll win it the year after. But one thing's for sure, Lewis Hamilton is here to stay.
My world has just turned upside down, but I'm still really enjoying it, and I'm just itching to get back out in the car.
Feels good, and it's an achievement what I always wanted to have.